Good afternoon, and welcome to the afternoon session of the Landmarks Preservation Commission's public hearing and public meeting for April 21st, 2026. We're resuming with public hearing item number 1, and I'll turn it over to our Director of Preservation, Corey Harala.
Thank you. Public hearing item number 1 is LPC 26-08230, an application for a certificate of appropriateness in the Borough of Brooklyn, Block 5144, Lot 54, 231 Argyle Road in the Beverly Square West Historic District. This is a shingle-style freestanding house designed by John A. Davidson and built circa 1895, and the application is to modify a window opening. I'm going to pause for just a second while we get the presentation up.
Good afternoon. My name is Dan Kaplan. I'm the principal and owner of Bowerbird Architects in Brooklyn, New York. 231 Argyle Road is a shingle-style house with a facade that's been modified to a certain degree, probably at an early date, but we don't know exactly when. The different facades have many remaining features, most of which we are going to restore. The community board was sent our proposal and did not vote on it and passed it on to the full landmarks board. This here is the existing south facade of the house. It contains several windows on the bay, and then at the gambrel roof, there are two smaller double hung windows adjacent to an Palladian window. We believe that these two double hung windows were added later. We did some probes to open up the wall and found that the framing and sheathing within and the type of nails were different than the original construction. The Palladian window is quite small, most likely because of a lower ceiling to the attic that is no longer necessary, and because there's a radiator below it and behind. This entire proposal is to ask you to consider the enlargement of the window and the removal of the two double hung windows. We want to bring symmetry back to this facade, and we believe that eliminating those two windows will make it look closer to its original. This smaller window is actually in a tiny closet that's not even usable to today's standards. This is a photograph showing those three windows. This is the Palladian existing window, which has been modified over time with casement windows, a double hung without multiple lights, and a broken fan light window that's been covered on the interior. This here is our proposed Palladian window, which would have a double casement and fixed side lights and a fixed fan light to match the style of the time. We're asking to enlarge that Palladian style window commensurate with the size of the gambrel roof facade and to allow a lot more light in on this floor. These are the two facades that bring most of the light into this floor, which is the primary sleeping floor. The removal of this double hung window would lessen the light, and this existing window is quite small. The larger window would also give them the ability to ventilate the top floor quite a bit. These were probes we did that I can return to you if you have any questions. Details of the larger casement, double casement Palladian window. And this is to illustrate a main feature of what we are trying to achieve. On the north facade, there exists a large arched window that actually contains some stained glass and is very old. We don't know if it's an original part of the house, but you will see from photographs that it is quite old and probably added either originally or very soon thereafter. It also has a nice symmetry to it, and it sits along a staircase, so it spans between the second and third floor. What we're trying to achieve is an axis that connects through the house to a similarly scaled window, also with an arched top that allows light and views through the house. These are examples of different houses in the neighborhood. There's an eclectic mix of different types of window treatments for the different styles of the houses. Here's a shingle style house that has a large arched window and a triple or quadruple pane dormer. This is most similar to ours, which has the Palladian style window, but I would argue is too small for the size of that facade. I believe, again, that was the case. I've worked on several houses, not only on this block, but in this neighborhood, that originally they had much shorter ceiling heights. This shows you the view of the large arched window on the northern facade with some interior views of it, which you could see have, the anchor and chain and a lot of the original moldings, stained glass window. We do not plan to change this window. We really like it. It's a big feature of the house. And this is our sort of photo montage to give you an idea of the scale and detail of the Palladian window that we are proposing. Happy to take any questions.
Thank you. Commissioners, do we have any questions? Okay, let's see if there's anybody in the room who would like to speak on this item. Noting that there isn't, let me turn it over to Stephen Thompson for remote testimony.
Those joining via Zoom who wish to speak, please raise your hand. Okay. Seeing none, I'll note for the record that Brooklyn Community Board 14 declined to submit a resolution, and Victorian Society of New York recommends retaining the existing Palladian window, and if that's not possible, the new window should be reduced and its proportions and details should closely match the existing window. LPC received written testimony from individuals recommending approval.
Thank you. Commissioners, do we have any final questions? Okay, so let's go ahead and close the hearing. Commissioner Goldblum, would you make a motion to close the hearing? Thank you. Commissioner Jefferson, would you second that?
No second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, the hearing is closed. One of our newest historic districts, very exciting. Commissioner Chen, would you like to start this discussion?
Yeah, I think that the getting rid of the small windows is, I have no problem with that. I do think that they may want to work with the staff on the size and the proportion of this larger window.
Thank you. Commissioner Goldblum?
I agree with that. I'd also ask the staff to look at the detail.
Thank you. Commissioner Jefferson? Thank you. Commissioner Kumbe?
I agree with what's been stated as well.
Commissioner Ginsburg?
Agreed.
And Commissioner Mahan?
Sure.
Thank you. Commissioner Chen, would you like to read the motion with those changes?
No problem.
Thank you.
In the matter of LPC 26-08230, 231 Argyle Road, Beverly Square, West Historic District. The application is to modify a window opening. Noting the building's style, scale, materials, and details are among features that can contribute to the special architectural and historic character of the Beverly Square, West Historic District. I recommend approval with modifications, finding that the Palladian style window to be removed is of an unusual small scale and not part of a unified composition of fenestration of the house, and is seen from a street only from an oblique angle. That the presence of a large larger symmetrically placed window recalling Palladian window at the other side facade of the house will be in keeping with the variety of composition found at this house and other shingle-style houses in this historic district. That the proposed window assembly will be consistent with windows found throughout the house in terms of materials, finishes, and details. However, I find that the proposed window assembly is slightly oversized and awkwardly proportioned. Therefore, I recommend that the overall height and proportion of the side lights and glass panes be restudied in consultation with the commission staff.
Thank you. Commissioner Goldblum, would you second that? Thank you. And John, will you call the vote?
Vice Chair Master,
Aye.
Commissioner Chen,
Aye.
Commissioner Ginsburg,
Aye.
Commissioner Goldblum, Commissioner Quimby,
Aye.
Commissioner Jefferson, Commissioner Mahan.
Aye.
Everyone in favor, none opposed, the motion passes.
That's been approved with modifications. Please work with staff on the details.
Thanks.
Thank you. Let's move to the next item.
Next item is public hearing item number 2, LPC 26-08389. An application for a certificate of appropriateness in the Borough of Brooklyn, Block 5239, Lot 53, 660 East 19th Street in the Fisk Terrace, Midwood Park Historic District. This is a colonial revival style freestanding house designed by Benjamin Dreisler and built circa 1907 to 08. And the application is to raise the porch ceiling, modify window openings, and install new siding.
Good morning. My name is Thomas Barry. I'm the applicant from Opera Studio Architecture. This is the existing house at 660 East 19th Street with the existing historic photo. Located in the Midwood Park Historic District, Fisk Terrace, between Glenwood and Foster Avenue. The existing building. So the scope of work that we're proposing on the existing house is we're doing a full gut renovation and exterior refurbishment with several items approved and reviewed at staff level, including replacing windows, roofing, and replacing existing wood trim in kind on the building. The public hearing items include 3 items. Which is to replace the wood cladding, which is a combination of lap siding and shake siding, lap siding at the ground floor and shake siding above, with a new material, a composite wood product, LP Smart Side product. The other items are a modification to the ceiling of the porch to create a vaulted porch, and to create a new window opening on the side facade, which is visible from the street. There's some images of the existing building. So the building has a lot of deterioration in the wood siding and the wood trim, poor waterproofing and poor insulation within. We're doing a complete refurbishment. The rendering of the proposed. The new wood trims painted a lighter color, the new siding installed with lap siding at the ground floor to replicate the historic condition, and the shake siding above. You can also see in this view the modified porch ceiling, which I'll get into more detail. Comparison of the new and existing existing and proposed configurations with the siding colors and the materiality. Existing color schemes of houses in the district with the lighter trims and porch and column colors, and various colors of the siding itself. Detail comparing the existing and the new conditions with the siding dimensions and the wood trims that will be replicated and replaced in kind and painted. So this is the material. Joe's handing out now. So again, this is a synthetic wood material, durable and economic, and in conjunction with the new wood trims and replacement of wood trims, we believe this will be a appropriate and economical choice for the building. Additional details showing the replacement of wood trim elements around the wood at the windows and the eaves. And again, this is all replacement in kind, working with staff on. The existing roof of the porch, we're proposing to increase the height of the ceiling at the interior to create a vaulted condition. On the left, you see the existing flat roof of the porch. On the right, the vaulted proposed condition. This is the existing condition with the painted beadboard ceiling. And the proposed with the vaulted beadboard ceiling. Section through that condition. And the third item, I'm going to talk through the elevations. Existing on the left, proposed on the right. The additional window indicated on the right or north side elevation is window number 3. It's visible from East 19th Street at a basically a sharp angle. We'll be removing window number 3 at the top and replacing it with a taller, narrow tilt-turn window. This is the location within the plan, coordinating with the kitchen design at the interior. And the sight line of that window from East 19th Street. And collage showing the visibility of that window from the street. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioners, do we have any questions? Commissioner Goldblum?
This factory paint on it, is that the idea?
Yes, it's factory painted.
Not exactly an
And
OSB.
you have to introduce yourself. So this is Andrew Epstein is
Hi.
also the developer.
Property
with me.
owner.
Property owner.
So what is it?
Well, it's a smart siding product. It's not exactly OSB. It's made differently.
But it's made of wood.
It is a wood particle board product. That's correct. Get the look and the feel of wood. And Tom kept referencing economical, but there's nothing economical about these renovations, guys. I think we all know that. These houses are so dilapidated in this neighborhood. It's a very different historical district than other historical districts in New York City in context, I believe, because you've got 4 sides of a 100-year-old wood frame house versus mostly attached brownstone style, which would be the typical historic district. So renovating these houses is very different than some of the other historical districts in New York City. I think what I would encourage the commission to try to do is come up with a sort of a sample set of approved materials specifically for all the greater sort of Flatbush historic districts that owners can use there that are like sort of pre-approved and agreed upon, which would make, I think, a path to renovating these houses much simpler, because I think probably make the argument that there's not another historic district in New York City the more dilapidated housing stock or structure stock than the greater Flatbush area.
Thank you. And your intention is to use these products where you would use the textured shingle and the smooth clapboard and trim?
Yeah, we think that's a nice juxtaposition, actually.
And you're doing so because it's a less expensive version than using cedar siding.
Certainly with respect to cedar siding, it is less expensive. We are doing an A to Z renovation in this project. The roof sheathing, strip the interior of the house down to the studs, insulating, all electrical, all plumbing, all new windows, which have already been approved, Marvin windows. So, you know, pay a lot of attention to detail there's a lot of tough decisions you have to make also along the way. So I'd like to continue renovating the houses in this neighborhood. I've renovated one in the past outside of the historic district, but we did so with a pretty strong historic nod at 56 Marlborough Road. But these projects are really hard, guys. They're really, really hard. The risks and the costs. Like to keep building beautiful things. Contributing to the historic fabric of the neighborhood. I lived in the neighborhood for a long time. My son was born in the neighborhood. I have a emotional and connection to that neighborhood as well. I mean, I met the LP guy this morning, and I think it would be good for them to come and present their products to you guys, because very thorough explanation of how it's made and the sustainability behind it. And I think that I don't want to do it to service, but I think you guys would be a lot more impressed if product directly to the commission, actually. Product directly to the commission.
Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioners, do we have any other questions? Okay, let's go ahead and see if we have anybody in the room. Noting that there's nobody in the room to speak on this item, let me turn it over to Stephen Thompson to see if we have any remote testimony.
Those joining via Zoom who wish to speak, please raise your hand. The first speaker will be Historic Districts Council.
This is Emma Bartley speaking on behalf of the Historic Districts Council. HDC finds aspects of this proposal appropriate, including the raising of the porch ceilings and the removal of non-historic siding. However, our review committee did question the proposed siding material and engineered wood product and recommended that cedar wood siding be used instead. Thank you.
Next will be John Graham.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. John Graham for the Victorian Society in New York. The Victorian Society supports some of the changes proposed for 660 East 19th Street. The alterations to the porch ceiling will not be highly visible from the public way, and the beadboard ceiling cladding will be similar to the existing historic ceiling cladding. However, we question the use of an engineered wood product for the siding on a historic building. This product, made from real wood scraps and fibers, along with chemical binders and preservatives, is something we believe needs much more investigation into the product's appearance and longevity. The original wood clapboards under the aluminum siding should be exposed, retained, and restored. They will have a much longer lifespan than any composite wood product, and of course, they are the original materials. We also believe that creating a new 10-foot wide door opening on the rear facade will require the removal of too much historic material and will create an opening which bears no relationship to the historic door and window openings on this building or on any other building of this style and type. The proposed siding material and 10-foot wide door must be rethought. Finally, I'll note, Commissioners, that the raise hand function wasn't working on the Argyle Road project. Thank you, Commissioners.
Okay, thank you. We resolved the raise hand function. I appreciate you mentioning that. And the testimony from Victorian Society for that item was shared with the commissioners. Anyone else joining via Zoom who wishes to speak, please raise your hand. All right, noting for the record, Brooklyn Community Board 14 chose not to submit a resolution for this application.
Thank you. Did the applicant want to respond to any of the comments? If you could just come to the podium, Nick, to the microphone, that'd be great. Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, there wasn't, the existing facade is deteriorated beyond repair. Furthermore, if, you know, you're renovating a house and you're approving things like solar panels and new double pane windows, to not be able to insulate the house properly or let the house breathe properly is doing a disservice to the renovation, I think. So leaving existing deteriorated clapboard and shingle siding that was not taken care of, I could see a situation where one of these houses was well taken care of over the course of the last 100 years, where I would personally decide to leave it. That was not the case with this project and with this house. Very poorly maintained. So being able to sheathe the house properly and insulate the house properly,
And waterproof the house properly.
and waterproof the house properly, is like, you know, of paramount, you know, decision for us.
Well, I think the key thing here is to reiterate that the expense of the full restoration, you know, making this house a beautifully restored building in the neighborhood. And first of all, as Andrew said, keeping the existing wood siding would be not a viable option to achieve that with the amount of deterioration and rot in it. And, you know, in terms of, in light of all the other work that we're doing there, I believe that this material will achieve the desired appearance and stand up over time with, of course, any material, the proper maintenance in conjunction with the other trim work and window work that we're doing to
The other
create a
thing
nice project.
I'm sure this is, you know, you have houses maybe next door, maybe across the street. Some have been stuccoed over the years. Some have been reconfigured, some have brick, some have vinyl. This is not a distasteful addition to this renovation or to the neighborhood at
Wow.
all.
Our proposal is for a tasteful renovation
Yeah,
that will
I'm saying it's
beautify the
not,
neighborhood.
exactly.
Exactly.
Great.
I'm not allowed to reference non-landmarks approved modifications.
But it exists. It's just reality. I mean, let's be reasonable with, you know,
Yeah.
with what we're doing here.
Thank you. Commissioners, do we have any other questions? Okay, if not, let's go ahead and close the hearing. Commissioner Mahan, would you make a motion to close the hearing? Yeah,
Yes.
thank you.
Close.
Commissioner Ginsburg, would you second that?
Second.
Thank you. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, the hearing is closed. Commissioner Akumbe, would you like to start this discussion?
Sure. Overall, what I see is being proposed is pretty straightforward. I can go along with the modifications that are being presented. That is the raising of the porch roof. Also recladding the building itself, which of course is in need of. And I believe that one proposed window opening, I'm fine with that. Overall, I can find this application.
Thank you. Commissioner Ginsburg?
So I agree. I just want to discuss alternative materials for a minute because it's a complicated issue. There are lots of alternative
materials that we accept. There are others that we probably would never accept. Presuming that the existing wood is not in good condition, this seems like a relatively reasonable product and probably, I don't know if longer lasting, but lower maintenance than if you installed new wood and painted. And we often get into cases that people don't paint it and it deteriorates even though they should be painting it. So I think I can accept this, but it would be interesting for staff to look at this product more and maybe get presentation just to have a better feeling about it. But I can find this appropriate.
Thank you. Commissioner Mahan,
It's appropriate.
Commissioner Chen,
Same here.
Commissioner Goldblum.
I agree. I think that the staff, though, should, I mean, I think for me, the texturing relative to the house. Possible that within the array of textures and offered by the company that
Thank you. Commissioner Jefferson.
I would agree with my fellow commissioner.
Thank you. Commissioner Kumbe, would you like to read the motion and perhaps, recommend that they, work with staff on this new material? Thank you.
In the matter of LPC 26-08389, 660 East 19th Street, Fisk Terrace, Midwood Park Historic District, colonial revival style freestanding house designed by Benjamin and built circa 1907-08. Its application is to raise the porch ceiling, modify window openings, and install new siding. I note that the building style, scale, materials, and details are among the features that contribute to the special architectural and historic character of the Fisk Terrace Midwood Park Historic District. I recommend approval, finding that the work will not damage or eliminate any significant architectural features, that the historic clapboard and shingle siding is deteriorated, warranting replacement, that the proposed engineered wood clapboard and shingle sidings will match the historic wood siding in terms of placement, dimension, and profiles, and the colors will be in keeping with the style of the house. That the painted surface of the flat clapboards and subtly textured shingles seen in conjunction with the painted wood trim will closely match the historic wood siding in appearance, that the proposed slope of the wood porch ceiling will be consistent with the historic treatment of porch ceilings found at some houses and will be a discrete variation from the historic flat ceiling as seen from public thoroughfares. That the proposed windows and door openings and infill at the side facades will be simply designed and compatible with the informal composition of openings at the secondary facades in terms of their placement and size. That the proposed window at the side facade will have a subordinate presence when seen in limited, partially obscured views from across the side yards, and that the work will not detract from the special architectural and historic character of the house, the Fisk Terrace Midwood Park Historic District. I also note that the applicant should look into creating a mock-up to share with the staff for further review.
Thank you. Commissioner Ginsburg, would you second that?
Second.
Thank you. And John, will you call the vote?
Vice Chair Master,
Aye.
Commissioner Chen,
Aye.
Commissioner Ginsburg,
Aye.
Commissioner Goldblum, Commissioner Ekwembe,
Aye.
Commissioner Jefferson,
Aye.
Commissioner Mahan.
Aye.
7 in favor, none opposed. The motion passes.
That's been approved, but please continue to work with staff, especially on the material. Thank you. Let's move to the next item.
Right, the next item is public hearing item number 3, LPC 26-08366, an application for a certificate of appropriateness in the Borough of Staten Island, Block 584, Lot 75, 184 Cebra Avenue, in the St. Paul's Avenue, Stapleton Heights Historic District. This is a Queen Anne style church parsonage designed by Peter Post and built circa 1884 to 85. The application is to legalize modifications to the front porch, construction of a side addition, and installation of fencing without LPC permits.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. I'm Roberto Ciliberto, LPC staff. The project I'm presenting today is the legalization of work performed without permit at a freestanding house in the St. Paul's Avenue, Stapleton Heights Historic District. The building is at the corner of Marion Avenue and Cebra Avenue. The house is a wood frame clapboard above a brick foundation, 2-story plus basement, Queen Anne parsonage in a lot formerly connected to the adjacent church. The district was designated in June 2004, and at the time of designation, the building was in state of severe disrepair. The wood siding appeared damaged, some areas covered with aluminum siding, patch roof gables, and different paint colors. And the porch presented replaced columns, missing and non-historic railings and decorative brackets, and an alternate entrance and stairs. During the designation process, the owner, present today, was working on the restoration of the building, including installing new skylights and vents on the roof, repairing the roof and brick chimney, and replacing the rotten wood siding. Before designation, a small deck was built on top of the main roof ridge to allow better access to and maintenance of the roof. Much of the ongoing work was documented in a letter sent to the Commission during the designation process. Today, the building shows a notable improvement in condition. The wood siding has been restored, the aluminum cladding removed, the entire facade repainted, the roof gables and eaves restored to the original conditions, the new leaders and gutters installed, and restored windows throughout. Additionally, the wood fence and gate at the side had been replaced in kind. The non-historic lower wood fence at the 2 street sides had been replaced with a simple metal picket low fence, all of which can be legalized at staff level. However, work that goes beyond staff level includes rebuilding the front porch with changes in the details and demolishing a small mudroom at the side facade to build 2-story extension. Both items are the subject of this public hearing. The front porch has been built with a specific focus on water infiltration problem the building suffered through the years. A new wood structure with 4 columns instead of 3 corresponding to the brick supports below featured a raised deck at the 2nd floor, and extend eave with a new gutter and leader and new railings on both floors. The 2nd floor raised deck has a visible railing structure outside of the terrace perimeter and an overall thicker profile with exposed purlins. The reason for this choice is to allow the water to fall under the deck, sloping away from the building through the porch roof and be collected in the gutter. The exterior railing minimize penetration to the deck and terrace to avoid water infiltration. The gutter is installed at the end of an extended eave, mimicking the design of the original eaves of the main building. At the porch, the newly constructed roof presented a non-historic decorative wood coffet ceiling, painted to match the rest of the building, partially visible from the street. The second item of this public hearing is the demolition of the non-visible 1-story mudroom at the rear of the side of the building, and construction of 2-story plus basement addition. On this slide, we can see the footprint of the previous mudroom, and on this slide, the new construction, which extends beyond the side facade and presents windows and doors. At the roof, a skylight is proposed next to the main building gable. On this slide, we can see the elevation of the previous construction, minimally visible from the street. And on this slide instead, the drawings of the proposed construction and a picture of the built structure, which the applicant would like to legalize. The style and finish will match the main house with painted wood siding and new 2/2 double-hung windows. On this slide, we can see the visibility from the street and a better picture from above the fence of the structure. On this slide, the drawing of the rear facade before the demolition of the mudroom and its non-visible condition from Marion Avenue. While on this slide, the proposed new construction and the visibility of its structures from Marion Avenue. This is the end of our presentation, and the owner is here to provide additional information on the choices that he adopted.
Hi, Ted Hyde. I'm the owner of the house, and thank you for your time and consideration.
Did you want to say anything, or would you like to take questions?
Oh, well, I have a shop in the basement and I have to bring bulky tools and stock in and out of there. And the old Bilco doors, they were non-historic. They were just basically plywood and they were rotting when I bought the house. So I wanted to make double 3-foot doors so I could get big things in and out. And then I have a window that allows me to bring long stock in to my shop. So it's kind of important for safe egress in and out of my shop. As I got older, carrying things in and out of there was very difficult. So I wanted to make it better. Also, I'm kind of an avid cyclist and I wanted to create enough spot for a bicycle garage. I keep my bike in the hall of my house and it's kind of dangerous. My daughter got stitches once by falling into the pedal. So it's a egress issue there as well. We love the house. We love the neighborhood. Been a long road and a lot of dreams. And we're trying to do the right thing. I'll just take questions.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Commissioner Ginsburg, did you have a question?
Yeah. Just understand, did you not know that you needed to come to Landmarks when you did the renovation? Or what? I'm just trying to understand how we got to this situation.
Enthusiastically supported landmarking the area. We thought it's very important. It's why we picked the neighborhood. We had the dream of taking the siding off. It was 2 layers of siding and it was a pretty big job. And so we enthusiastically supported it. And we were told that we went over the work we were doing and we said, and we were told by Landmarks at the time that they would not have any problem with it. So we just proceeded on. It took longer than we had hoped to have, but we didn't know that we had to really, our thought was if we were making it more historic and better, that they wouldn't object to it. And that's why we did it that way. We realize now that it's wrong and I've been working with Roberto to try to straighten things out.
Thank you.
Any other questions, commissioners? Okay. Noting that there's nobody in the room for public testimony, let me turn it over to Stephen Thompson to see if we have any remote testimony.
Those joining via Zoom who wish to speak, please raise your hand. The first speaker is John Graham.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. John Graham for the Victorian Society in New York. The Victorian Society supports the construction of the 2-story addition on the side facade of 184 Cebra Avenue. Its modest scale will not overwhelm the historic building, and the proposed 2/2 sash and painted wood siding will match the existing materials in place on this house. However, the front porch, as altered, bears no relationship to the original and should be denied. The tax photo shows that the original porch featured round columns and turned spindles at the railings. The reconstruction features rectangular columns and square spindles. These are not appropriate. We also find the framing of the porch and the deeply coffered ceiling to be overly heavy, giving too much mass to what had been a lightly scaled building feature. Finally, Commissioners, we were somewhat confused by the presentation. The very first photograph in the presentation shows the roof deck. I was pleased to learn just now that that was a temporary feature and that it has been removed. Thank you, Commissioners.
Anyone else joining via Zoom who wishes to speak, please raise your hand. Seeing none, I'll note for the record that Staten Island Community Board 1 recommends approval.
By the roof deck. It was not removed. It was present at designation.
But is it there now?
Yes.
Oh, okay. Oh, it's there now. Okay.
And it should be denied.
Okay. So did you want to respond to any of the comments?
Sure. The original porch, when we bought the house, was from the 80s and had square columns, and they had taken 2x material and laid it over the original structure. We removed that and restored the original structure, and it's visible in the porch. We retained the square columns because that was our preference, and it's also structurally easier and more affordable for us. We spent so much money on the house, we had to, make some compromises. We couldn't get turned columns for the same price, but we didn't change the character. We did add an extra column because for some reason, at some point, somebody had decided to eliminate a column and place a column in the center of the span between the brick piers, which was structurally undermining the building. Also, there wasn't proper pitch, so we had to make the structure a little bit heavier to create enough pitch for the water to flow off. You can see in the picture, there's a big tree there. If you have the original gutters wrapping around the house on 3 sides, that just means that you can't get proper pitch, and it clogs up with leaves, and it sort of doomed the roof. We did not penetrate the new rubber roof, which is supposed to last 50 years, with the post, and we wanted to tie the structure to the facade firmly because we've had microbursts in the area, and the Trinity Lutheran Church, which you can see in the back there, lost some of its roof structure and piers and went through their roof. So that's why we kind of overbuilt it a little bit and made sure the attachment was really good. I will also say that all of our neighbors really love it, and I didn't get statements from them, but I'm prepared to do that, and we want to fight for our design as built. The coffered ceiling was a discovery based on the existing structure of the framing, and it has intrinsic historic value and will add over time to the historic character of the neighborhood, and people really like it, and it's a lot more work. And also, I would like to note that it's salvaged material from the fence that you saw in some of the first pictures. The railing design was established at the time of designation, so I thought that had been resolved at the staff level already. It was kind of surprising to me that it wasn't approved anymore. We did go back and forth. There were some issues with it, but I don't know if you go back to some of the earlier slides, you may see that there's the original fence when we bought it, but this is well before designation. We took out the section that was falling down. You can see the 2x material peeling off and the columns deteriorating. Those brackets were plastic. They were added on in the 80s. And you can see the gutter wrapping around. It's not really, it was just a white gutter, but it didn't serve any purpose and just created more avenues for water damage. So we eliminated that, and I pushed a little pitch out to create a little bit of extra space for water to fall off the roof if there's any gutter problems and whatnot. And that was also additional work and expense in design. We carefully scaled that and crafted it so that it would function appropriately. And yeah, that's how we feel. I love Victorian architecture, and we really think our ceiling is a beautiful addition to the property. Those are the original wood that was underneath the 2x4s that we exposed and restored. Not the centerpiece, but the piece above and below. And we tried to keep the details consistent with the work that was in progress at designation that we were told that they would support. And even the placement of the railings, et cetera, was done at that time. If you go back, there might be a picture of the railing that we had put up on the 2nd-story terrace at the time of designation, just to make sure that they saw that that's what we were doing. And we communicated with them, we thought, and we thought we had their support. And I'm kind of surprised that it's an issue now. But we hope to keep it as built. This is a beautiful picture of the side porch and whatnot, but I think that must have had the 4, that one, they did have small little round pillars. There must be 4 of them there. We just don't see one in the picture. Is that possible, or is it only 3?
Mhm.
Oh, there's the taller railing that I have, that's the detail. So you see how
Yeah.
that's there.
Thank you so much. Thank you for that explanation.
If I could elaborate on the communication and designation that Mr. Hyde referred to. During the designation process, the owners of buildings are sent the draft entry for their building. And that was sent to Mr. Hyde. And in response, he sent back a letter listing the work that he was taking at that time back 22 years ago. And that's the reference that he's making. We didn't see any response in the
So there was no response, just verbally that they would support our work and that they weren't gonna have any problem with us. And took that to the bank and we should have.
That was in 2004.
Thank you. Let's go ahead and close the hearing. Commissioner Akumbe, would you make a motion to close the hearing?
So moved.
Thank you. Commissioner Jefferson, would you second that?
So second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, the hearing is closed. So why don't I take this one? So St. Paul's Avenue, Stapleton Heights Historic District is one of only 2 residential historic districts from Staten Island. And I'm familiar with this house because the church next door, 190 Cebra, I actually showed about 7 years ago. So I know that you did a wonderful job in restoration because I know what the condition was like before. And I actually visited the site over the weekend and I walked around the whole house, the front as well as to the side to Marion to see. And I will say that the craftsmanship, the workmanship that you did is outstanding. You did a wonderful job in restoring this house. So let's go ahead and talk about the specific conditions. I'm going to start with the rear yard addition, the 2-story addition. I can find it appropriate. I don't think it competes with the main building, and I think it recalls the bow windows in the front. I think as long as it's the same color and material as the main house, I think I can find that appropriate. In addition, I think there was also a wooden fence that you had replaced with a small metal fence, and I saw it. It's very low, it's attractive, it opens up the yard more, and I would say it's even more attractive than what was there before, which was the wooden fence, which was not in good condition. In terms of the coffered porch ceiling, I also saw that. I will note that it's also very well done, well crafted, and it has minimal visibility from the street. You can't really see it unless you come very close to the porch area. And finally, in terms of the porch and the porch railings, I will note that the railings are very regularized and the color is a very dark green. In fact, I would say that this photo makes it look a little bit lighter than it is, but when you're up close, it's so dark that some of these details are not as distinguishable. So I don't find that some of these details are, when I looked at it up front personally, it's dark, it's very regularized, so I can find these details of the front porch appropriate as well. So having visited the site, I can actually find the work that you have done appropriate as presented. Although I would like to say that in the future, when you do work, please remember to work very closely with staff and perhaps even over-communicate so that we don't have any issues in the future. But you have done a wonderful job in restoring it, and I really appreciate it because I know this block and what the work that you've done made a big difference. Commissioner Ginsburg?
So, excuse me, I appreciate Commissioner Masters' comments. And clearly from the before photos, you've done a really nice job and care about the house, and I appreciate it. The one thing that I think should be changed is the railing at the front porch, so it doesn't run in front of the columns, but runs between the columns, which would hopefully be a fairly easy modification. But besides that, I can find it appropriate.
Thank you. Commissioner Mahan?
I think the applicant did a beautiful restoration job here. Given the existing conditions at the time of designation and some lack of clarity regarding communication, but given also the comments that Vice Chair Master made about the colorations and the regularity and order given to the design, even if it is perhaps not precisely matching the 1940s tax photo, I can find this appropriate as is.
Thank you. Commissioner Chen?
I shared the comments, both the vice chair and the commissioners. I think Commissioner Gimbus is right. They did a good job here, but I think please work with the staff, the LPC, because in case, measure twice, cuts once. You don't want to do the other way. And this is for all applicants that are in the landmark district as well as landmark structures.
Commissioner Goldblum?
I think in general that it does a lovely job and generally appropriate. I think in terms of the side addition, I think your comment, Angie, about the relationship to the bay window is well taken, and the applicant could work with staff to make sure that the very nice job they did in detailing the bay window, colors and the way it's assembled should be carried forth onto that part of the house. I think that the railing would be better regressed, but I could accept it as is. The one thing that I do feel is unusual, and I think that had it been presented without having been built already, I think I would have at least said that the center column was an important feature of the design. And it's interesting, if you look at the historic photo, the top railing is as he built it, divided into three. The base, the area under the porch is as he has it, divided into three, but the column's in the middle. And I think that's a very interesting thing. And my guess is that he just didn't want to have a column smack in the middle of the bay window, which is kind of what you have now. So I do think that's an important design feature. And I'd say that if it is something that you could work with staff to move, it'd be good. If not, I think it's acceptable without it. But I do think that if the standard is what would we have approved, I would have pushed hard for that.
Thank you. Commissioner Jefferson?
The side addition, I think it's well done. I can approve that. The front porch, a little bit heavy, but I can approve it. It's just sticking out. It's another layer, and I don't find it inappropriate. And what's the third one? Fencing, I can approve that.
Thank you. Commissioner Ikumbe?
I can find it appropriate as presented.
Thank you. I'll go ahead and read the motion. In the matter of LPC 26-08366, 184 Cebra Avenue, St. Paul's Avenue, Stapleton Heights Historic District. A Queen Anne style church parsonage designed by Peter Post and built circa 1884 to 1885. Application is to legalize modifications to the front porch, construction of a side addition, and installation of fencing without LPC permits. I note that the building style, scale, materials, and details are among the features that contribute to the special architectural and historic character of the St. Paul's Avenue, Stapleton's Heights Historic District, and that alterations were underway at the time of designation. I recommend approval, finding that the house was previously in a highly deteriorated condition and the reconstruction of the front porch with certain modifications and demolition of a small mudroom did not eliminate any significant architectural features and is supportive of the long-term preservation of the building. that the installation of 4 columns instead of 3 correspond to the spacing of the brick piers under the porch, and the change in configuration of the wood steps leading up to the porch is consistent with other houses of this type and style. That the simple design and profiles of the columns and railings at the porch relate well to the house, and the new decorative porch ceiling is minimally visible from public thoroughfares. That certain elements of the reconstructed porch, which was designed with a sloped roof and level deck used for occupancy above, sufficiently recall the historic porch, providing additional protection against water damage to the wood structure. That the 3-story polygonal side extension with skylight currently under construction, which will be visible from both Cebra and Marion Avenues, will reflect the geometry of the front bay windows and will be clad in painted wood siding with multi-light double hung windows, allowing it to blend harmoniously with this Queen Anne style house. I would like you to work with staff on the final finish and final details of the 2-story extension. Yeah. Commissioner Ginsburg, would you like to second that motion?
Second.
Thank you. John, will you call the vote?
Vice Chair Master.
Aye.
Ben.
Aye.
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 Person.
Aye.
Commissioner Mahan.
Aye.
7 in favor, none opposed, the motion passes.
Okay, that's been approved, but please continue to work with staff, especially when you finish the second floor rear extension. And you did a wonderful job. It's beautiful. Thank you. Next item.
Next item is public hearing item number 4, LPC 26-09035, an application for a certificate of appropriateness in the Borough of Manhattan, Block 1296, Lot 7502, 150 East 42nd Street, the Saccone Mobile Building, individual landmark. This is an international, modern-style skyscraper designed by Harrison and Abramowitz and John B. Peterkin and built in 1954 to 56. The application is to modify entrances, remove and install light fixtures, and establish a master plan governing the future installation of signage and vitrines.
Well, good afternoon, Commissioners. I'm Julie Rosen from Higgins Quaisbarth and Partners. We're the preservation consultants on this project, and I'm joined today by Jeff Ellerbrock from MDAS Architects. 150 East 42nd Street, also known as the Saccone Mobile Building, is an individual exterior landmark. It was constructed in 1956 and designed by Harrison and Abramowitz as a speculative office building. And as you can see from the photo at the right and the block plan on left, this building is huge. It's 42 stories of embossed stainless steel and blue glass panels, and it covers the full block between Lexington and 3rd Avenues and 41st and 42nd Streets. Today, we are focusing on just the building entries, which are deeply recessed within the 3-story base. The main building entry is located off of 42nd Street, and there is a secondary entrance located off of Lexington. So here we have a view of the main building entrance on 42nd Street. We're standing on the north side of the street. The entrance is framed by a curved stainless steel arch or eyebrow with large granite piers below. These elements are repeated at the Lexington entrance, and they open up to a large exterior vestibule. The actual entrance, which is back here, is set back 20 feet from the plane of the facade. And so this rear entrance plane is very much secondary to the expression of the street facade. The building is currently a multi-tenant office building, and it will remain so, but many of the existing conditions do not meet the needs of a modern office building or of modern office use. And so the proposal before you today, which includes modifications to infill and lighting at the 2 building entrances, addresses a variety of visibility, security, lighting, and accessibility issues. And the new design for 42nd Street will also create increased transparency and a better connection between the exterior vestibule and the lobby. We are also proposing the establishment of an office tenant signage master plan, which will improve upon the existing signage that currently exists at the base of the building. MDAS has developed a building-specific approach for this project with a proposal that responds to unique building conditions and carefully integrates contemporary design into the historic fabric. We have a couple of historic building photos here. These are from the time of construction. The overall views really capture the massive scale of the building. We have the 42nd Street entrance located at the center of the block here, flanked by large glassy storefronts and surrounded by those blue glass panels. And then we have focused historic views of just the entrances here. We again have this very clear distinction between the primary street wall versus those secondary entrance planes, which are in shadow in both photos. The stainless steel eyebrows and the granite piers were the most significant design elements at both entrances. And it is these features that are specifically noted in the designation report. The piers at both entrances were also historically utilized as locations for signage. The next few slides show the approach to the building on 42nd Street, and we're starting here on the north side of the street looking east. The entrance is almost always experienced in oblique views like this. The exterior vestibule is often in shadow. We're now moving closer to the building. We're on the south side of the street looking east and west. You still don't really have a clear view of what's happening behind the granite piers until you're almost immediately under the eyebrow. We see the two planes very clearly here, that primary street wall and the secondary entrance wall and that exterior vestibule. And the expression and the relationship of these elements will be retained in the new design. We can also see significant staining at the base of the columns, and there is oil canning and corrosion occurring at the underside of the eyebrow, and those conditions will also be addressed as part of this project. The piers, as you can see, are still utilized for signage as they were historically, and the existing plaques were previously approved by the commission. We've now stepped into the exterior vestibule. We have the key plan here on the lower right. So we're looking at that setback entrance wall. There's a low band of doors that extends from east to west. Those include egress doors at the outer edges. There are 2 sets of Herculite swing doors. And then in the center, we have 4 sets of revolvers separated by stainless steel piers. Above the doors is a stainless steel band that is continuous along the length of the wall. And then above are granite panels that clad that upper portion of the wall. There's also a granite louver at the west side. A large portion of the granite above the doors is obscured by this large sign for one of the commercial tenants, and this was also approved by the commission. So looking at some details, I'm going to focus on the lower left here. The 4 revolving doors, we see 3 of them in this view. They do have stainless steel drums, and they're also separated by the stainless steel piers. So there's a lot of solidity at this portion of the building. This really limits visibility into and out of the lobby and creates a very closed off condition. The ceiling, as you can see on the upper right photo, is clad with linear stainless steel panels, and within them we have integrated downlights. There are also downlights integrated into the underside of the stainless steel eyebrow, and you can see some of the oil canning and corrosion that I mentioned earlier. The granite piers, stainless steel elements, and terrazzo flooring, you can see this here. There's 2 different types of terrazzo, one in the vestibule and one at the entrance doors. All of those materials will be repaired and restored as part of the project. So we've now moved on to Lexington. We have a view on the left standing across the street, and then a view on the same side of the street, on the east side of the street, adjacent to the entry. The conditions here are very similar to those on 42nd Street. So we're again within that exterior vestibule, key plan on the right. The side walls here are faced with a mix of granite panels, stainless steel egress doors, and louvers. There's also, again, a large tenant sign located at the granite above the entrance doors. In contrast to 42nd Street, here we have a much higher level of transparency within the entrance infill itself. This includes 2 sets of revolvers. Here they have glazed drums, and then there's also a Herculite swing door with 2 glazed side lights. And MDIS drew on this original design intent, which still exists on Lexington, in developing the proposed design for 42nd Street. We've also found that Harrison and Abramovitz used glass in a variety of ways at entrances to large office buildings. We have examples of this in the appendix. We're also thinking about this project, of course, in the context of prior approvals. Over the last several years, the Commission has approved a number of proposals for entrance modifications at individual landmarks. Those 2 called for the removal of historic and existing fabric and the installation of contemporary glass and metal infill in its place. And with that, I'll hand it over to Jeff to take you through the design proposal. Thank you.
Thank you, Julie, and thank you, commissioners, for your time this afternoon. As Julie mentioned, I'm quite tall. I'm Jeff Elbrecht with MDS Architects. Before we get into the details, I do want to highlight the areas we have been focusing on with this intervention and restoration, and I'll start with number 1 here. So the 42nd Street entry, as Julie outlined, today contains very low revolving doors with solid barrels and solid panels between the barrels themselves. We have the heavy granite transom that's above that. There's issues of security and visibility through here, and with that also just the experience for a building of this size in this district, the actual experience both moving in and out of the building. So the idea is here that we would bring in more transparency and visibility. Two, the exterior lighting, it's original to the building. It has been modified, relamped over time, and that's in the stainless steel just underneath the brow there. Part of this proposal looks to unify that with both retrofitting existing lights and introducing new lights, more modern lights that can actually give us a little bit more output inside the space. The entry is original to the building, so ADA access or ADA guidelines, which came out in the 80s. There's an opportunity now to actually work those guidelines into the doors so that both the operation in and out works better today. And then to balance that intervention, Juliet had outlined, there's a number of existing granite discoloration that's happening around the base. The metal, the stainless steel has been deteriorating at some joint locations, and then there's the oil canning. So we want to balance the intervention with restoration at both the 42nd Street and Lexington side entries. And we'll go through, we're going to first just talk about the intervention at the entry. We'll talk about the lighting and then get into the tenant master plan. I'm sorry, the tenant signage master plan. So on 42nd, as we talked about the eyebrow already, this it is, 42nd is actually wider than a lot of streets. So sometimes you do get a more frontal view of this, but it's very recognizable from both east and west. The image on the top is the existing today. We see the mural from the tenant and the dark revolving doors that are all solid except for the wings themselves. So this proposal, when you look past the piers, is producing more transparency into the lobby, glass revolving doors, and the glass transom that gives us more visibility and light from the lobby itself. And to remind everyone, this is a full city block. There's nearly an 8-foot difference in height from one side to the other, which it adds some complexity to how the doors operate as well. We'll go into 42nd Street here first. So this is the view, a head-on view as it is today. We have a variety of signage on the exterior, both the main tenant and another tenant. And then the building address signage is also on that pier. You see the discoloration on the stone, and then beyond that is these lights. This is taken during a cloudy day. The lights were off, but this is an idea just how dark that recess entry can appear. And so this proposal looks at, if we look past these, we will clean up the granite, the stainless steel brow itself, but then beyond that is where we're introducing the vision, the transparency with the glass, both the revolving doors and the transom panel above. And a view, we saw this view earlier, this is today. Those revolving doors are just above 7 feet in height, and it's all solid from this angle here. And then the proposed would actually allow visibility through the doors, as the barrels would be glass. The panel between revolving doors would also become vision glass. And then here we see the size of that glass transom up above. As part of the signage plan, we would take the building address signage and make that part of the entry to the building, just above the doors, keeping the tenant options on the signage out to the piers of the building itself. And just a 2D view, just the perspectives actually do sometimes throw off just how one approaches this. The piers the columns are very large. They're both structural and mechanical. There's fresh air that comes in through vents on the backside of these columns. So the visibility, that's also hindering the visibility here, but this is the existing today. We see the different sign types that are on the face of the building. And then the proposed, again, revolving doors become glass, and the transom panel above those doors would become glass. And I'm just going to go one more. So we take the columns away from this view. We see there's a better understanding of the actual intervention of the glass transom and revolving doors at the entry part. I want to make note, because I'm sure someone's noticing the arch or the eyebrow that we're seeing, that curve follows into this the arcade here. It actually follows the slope of the sidewalk, so the two start points are at the same height, but produces a slightly tweaked arc on the ceiling itself. So the left side is actually slightly lower than the right side. This will show up more often, so I do want to just note that it's not a drawing error. The plan also has this same arc profile. We're retaining that. That's both in how the revolving doors are set up and also the granite panels are above, and we'll compare the two here. So on the left is the existing condition today with the elevation and two plan sections. at the door location and then also at the transom above. And if we start at the bottom, we see the barrels in plan here, the revolving doors are all solid. Again, at 7 foot high, with a large and heavy frame across the top. The visibility through here is very difficult. So this proposal looks to go all glass with the revolving doors. So in between the four there, you would have visibility through each door. If we go up one plan, the transom area on the left today, and the mural is removed from this drawing just for clarity, but that transom area is about 4 feet thick. There's steel columns inside there and then also support steel just for the granite and CMU wall that's supporting the granite on the exterior. This proposal then takes a more modern day curtain wall type detail for the glass. Roughly 3 panels of granite would become a glass light. And this would be insulated glass units on a structural steel mullion at the same arc as the transom, as the same arc as the granite previously. And then a comparison section of the existing and proposed. Again, on the left, that revolving door at the base is solid. And then that 4 foot wide wall, which is actually a combination of 2 walls, which contains the columns and some of the structure. That's the area we're looking to modify and bring in the more modern curtain wall there. The blue revolving door below is now all glass. So again, we get that visibility across. The signage that I mentioned previously would be this element just beyond the face of the glass. We should be using the cursor right here. I'll go more detail. And this here is a blow up of the 2 sections. So again, on the left here, the condition today, this is the thicker granite wall that's at the face above the entries now. There's the steel column in here and then horizontal support steel that's both a lateral support for the columns and then also supporting the granite facade above the door. And then the proposed takes away that granite. Again, this is a modern curtain wall detail where we have insulated glass units on a mullion profile beyond. I'm going to link to something. So that was a section view, a plan view of the condition here. So on the glass transom, this first one, number 1 here on the left, this is, the curtain walls were being developed at the time of this building, actually being built as well. This, using an IGU unit, this is structurally glazed to the mullion itself. So the 4 or 5 locations of the mullions would actually look like this, structurally reinforced to reduce the size as much as we can. And then the transition to the existing granite louver that exists there today. So the 2 end conditions will look similar to this here. I want to compare kind of as a rendered drawing and section of the revolving doors and swing doors today versus what is being proposed. So again, the solid stainless steel all between the doors themselves, this poche of the barrel itself, and it's only the glass panels that you're actually moving through where any visibility is provided. And then a cross section there, again, these door heights, not large. We're used to 10 feet for buildings of this size. We'll maintain these 7 foot doors, only just adding glass where we can. AI is trying to change things for me here. Sorry about that. That was the existing, the proposed. So comparing, again, glass revolving doors with the glass panel in front of the revolving doors, cross section of that, and then we see the 150, which would be a free floating letter form or number form of the building here, providing backlight onto this beam, which will give it a silhouette effect during evening hours. And on flanking each side of the entry, the 4 revolving doors or the swing doors, these today are Herculite doors, very wide gaps. Air, probably today with the stack effect, you could hear the air moving through there. There are some clearance issues along with the handles. So as part of this, we would propose getting proper seals on the doors, and the clearance is required for ADA access on these two side doors. Again, maintaining the stainless steel framing. We would utilize insulated glass units just to meet energy code requirements, which we do not want to be exempt from on this new work. And to highlight the details of the building sign on 42nd Street, The 150, again, a 2-inch form that's sitting on a ledge here. As I mentioned, we'll be backlighting onto the beam wrap on the interior side to give a silhouette effect for dusk hours. And then here's a 3-dimensional view of how that would work. And at dusk today, this was taken it's a few weeks ago. Actually, some of the lights have been replaced. But the lights are glary. The bulb itself sits at roughly the level of the ceiling. And so as you're approaching, it does hit you. Your eyes are adjusting to that. And it's throwing very hard scallops onto the facade itself. It is illuminating the floor very well, which is actually a very hard contrast to the dark threshold that you pass through to get to the lobby. So as part of this proposal, we would try to unify that light. The first light we're going to talk about would actually be putting light onto the ground, and there's another light we're introducing that would really light up the volume of it and actually get a more uniform glow on the walls. And also just with the glass introduction on the transom, we're getting light from the lobby that's back out here as well. So we're instead of a hard, brightly lit arcade, we're actually able to unify this both inside and out. We'll talk about the tenant signage coming towards the end here. And then to explain the light proposal in more detail, on the left is the existing today. Kind of tell how there's been things relamped, fixtures changed over time. There's a flush ring that goes around the lights, which we want to retain. But part of what we're proposing is instead of these large aperture, par lamps, we would actually come with more modern day LED fixture, smaller aperture at the same locations as those existing lights. And then in the gaps between the slats, we would introduce a linear light. This is actually going to provide is there a way I can turn off the AI here, I guess? But in the gap between the slats, introduce a linear light that's actually going to give light more to the volume of the space and uniformly light the walls themselves. And to compare the existing RCP versus proposed, existing on top here, the blue location are those large aperture lights we just looked at. Underneath the brow today, there are a series of also large aperture lights. Some of these are working, some are not. This brow has received a lot of water. There's a corrosion at the joints and that's why we want to replace that. As part of this proposal, we're proposing not to bring these lights back. They hit the columns very hard, and that cavity there itself, we're trying to keep the water out. And then the proposal below, so again, the blue location, lights in the same location, just smaller aperture. I don't know. I'm just going to leave my mouse off to the side. Large. So the proposed down below, the blue locations, the existing light, just smaller aperture. And then, as I mentioned, in the gaps, we're introducing this linear downlight. In both instances, the light fixtures, the bulb itself will be recessed, so thereby reducing the glare that we experience today on the entry. So comparing the proposal here on the left is what's there, like a 5 or 6 inch, 5-inch aperture light fixture, roughly almost flush with the ceiling itself. It's actually a very nice detail. The flange is flush with the stainless steel, so we would come back with the same flush stainless steel, just a smaller aperture, and LED light, which also has a recessed lens to reduce the visibility. And then in the gaps between the stainless slats, this is that linear light fixture we're introducing up in that cavity there. And we'll move over so the Lexington Avenue side carries many of the same details aside from changing out the entries. The ceiling's very low in the lobby here, so we're not looking to add more glass to a cavity below. It's actually a mezzanine there. The part of this, the existing is up on top there, the mural would go away. The same restoration to the stainless brow and granite would take place, and there's a modification to the lights we want to show as well. There's retail to the left that actually has access to that space. They use that for advertising now. The show window just to the left is actually blanked off today with film. So as part of this proposal, we're looking to activate that for the building. It is disconnected to any retail space. There's a shaft and stair behind that, but we do want to give it some activity for the streetscape. An existing photo of the condition today. AI won't say anything now, just on the drawings. But here again, we'll see there's the tenant sign, the Wells Fargo tenant sign is actually different here. It's the copper color on 42nd. It's their newer logo here. But you see the different sign types, and again, the building signage itself is also trying to work in there as well. So this proposal, the tenant signs would stay at the pier. The building branded sign would actually go above the door. This is the 42nd Street name, the 150 East. And then on the door itself would actually be the 375 Lexington for the location here. We see on the right the vitrine. We'll talk about this more as part of the signage package, but we want to activate this so it's not just a plain window. And just a 2D view, plan and elevation of the existing, and then the proposed. You can see in the detail here, AI is going to do something, but this vitrine is actually disconnected from the retail space because of the shaft and stairs. So it's an opportunity for the building. Yep, there it is. And then above the entry on the Lexington Avenue side, again, this is the building branding name. This would be also the same stainless steel that we looked at on 42nd Street. These letter forms that would be mounted to the granite itself, and this would be above the door, indicating the building name. Street address would be on the glass door below. And here's a view at night. We see the dormant vitrine there, and then the proposal. Now the light fixtures here, the slats are a little different, a little bit wider than 42nd Street. So the proposal here, given the size of this recessed entry, is simply that use the lights as where they are and just go with the smaller aperture as we were proposing on 42nd Street. So the same detail that we saw previously would go on the Lexington Avenue side. So we'll dig into so that's the building signage was included here. We want to go through the tenant signage as the building changes here. So there's two options on 42nd Street. Historically, the piers have always received some kind of sign. Initially, it was the building address. Different versions of tenant signs came on. This first option looks at using the two middle piers for a single tenant, much like it is today. But instead of the large plaque covering up granite, we would actually do a three-dimensional letter form that's attached to a rail that's then attached to the granite to reduce the amount of anchor points for a tenant. And then the two far piers would be another tenant, much like it is today. There's a second option, which would bring a second tenant into the two middle piers. Again, same detail, no plaques, but we would limit the amount of anchor points into the granite itself. Just to quickly outline kind of the parameters there. So the two far ends would be for one tenant. The two middle ones is either one tenant or two tenants, but the tenants would be different. The signs themselves, so the 4-foot or the 48-inch dimension we're looking at here, that's the plaque today. Historically, it's either it's been the building number or a tenant. We're using that as a parameter to fill in signs, but we're not using the plaque itself. But each sign would be, or the tenant itself would be limited to about 20-inch height. It could be two lines, but it would be within that 20 inches. If there's a second tenant, they would use up the other portion of that 48 inches. Tenants would be able to use their font or logo, but the finish must be the satin stainless steel that we see at the brow and elsewhere on the trim at the building today. As I mentioned, the letters themselves would be mounted to a rail that then gets mounted to the granite, and then that rail is actually providing power so that we can backlight the signs and actually give a halo effect onto the granite itself, which will show a nighttime view what that would look like. And then similarly on the Lexington Avenue side, the same approach. Today, option one is like today, there's a tenant that has both piers that flank the entry, and then a second tenant on the far piers. Option two would be the introduction of a second tenant. Again, still working within that 4-foot plaque that's there today. And the same parameters as 42nd Street. The piers are just slightly narrower. And previously mentioned the vitrine here. So the idea that we pull the film off, the glass stays. There is about a 30-inch depth to the vitrine, but this would then become for building identification signage and rotating artwork within that space. But this would be controlled by the building and not a tenant. And as kind of a detail for this sign, so this applies for both 42nd Street and Lexington. So elevation, hard to see, but there is a 4-foot box here. This is for option 1. Generically saying sign, tenant A, that sign could actually be a logo. And with the name of the company below, both cases that would actually be mounted to a rail, which would provide the power and anchor to the granite itself. And you can see the halo effect of the light. So the backside of the signs themselves produce the light. And then that's the same idea with the second tenant sign. So this would be the 2 middle piers, or the piers that flank the entry. And I thank you all.
Commissioners, do we have any questions? Commissioner Goldblum?
Yeah, on the signage, when you say sign, and that can be a logo, and it should fit within that 4-foot box. So if, let's say, Wells Fargo was the tenant, would they be able to put their big plaque filling that 4-foot box?
No, it actually limited to 20 inches. So half the box.
And plaques are not an option.
That's true. That's true.
As
That's
part of
Julie.
the
Right.
new master plan.
Oh, so it's only text,
That
and
is
it can be text with a logo form, but not a plaque.
Right.
Great, thank you.
Any other questions? Commissioner Mahan?
And are these new signs or logos limited to stainless steel, or can they be colored or other materials?
Stainless steel. We can use the font, the tenant font or logo, but we would use the stainless steel for the sign, the material itself.
I'll just add one minor point of clarification. You may have seen, we have one note on the lower portion here. Mount Sinai is staying in the building, so they are going to be allowed to utilize their color font and logo because they are an existing tenant. So their signage will be updated to comply with the general parameters of this master plan. If and when they ever move out and a new tenant comes in, they would be required to use the stainless steel only.
So in that case.
Correct.
I see that in the detail that the letter forms are halo lit. Is that correct?
Correct.
So power will be run from inside the column to each
Right.
sign. Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay. Noting that there's nobody in the room to speak on this item, let me turn it over to Stephen Thompson for remote testimony.
Those joining via Zoom who wish to speak, please raise your hand. The first speaker will be Historic Districts Council.
Hello, this is Emma Bartley speaking on behalf of the Historic Districts Council. HDC finds the proposed physical modifications to the entranceways and the lighting generally appropriate. However, our review committee had some concern that the signage master plan allows for excessive tenant signage that distracts from the individual landmark's sleek design. HDC asks the applicant if the tenant signage could be relocated from the main entrance pillars to more discrete locations, such as within the recessed areas of the entranceways. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else joining via Zoom who wishes to speak, please raise your hand. None, I'll note for the record that Manhattan Community Board 4 recommends denial unless one of 2 conditions is met. Either the ground floor openings are restored to the previously approved 14 feet height, or if that is not possible, removal of paint from the upper facade and the restoration of the historic brickwork. I'm sorry, this is for the prior item. Okay. Manhattan Community Board 6 recommends approval.
Great, thank you. Commissioners, did you want to respond to the comments?
Sure, thank you. Yeah, I'll just respond quickly to HGC's testimony. I'm happy that they're supportive of the general approach, and just wanted to note that regarding the signage master plan, we do think that it's modest in relation to the scale of the building. The location of signage on piers is where signage was historically located, as well as it's currently located under the prior commission approval. And of course, it's very important to have the visibility for those commercial tenants. So thank you so much.
Thank you. Commissioners, any final questions? Okay, if not, let's go ahead and close the hearing. Commissioner Goldblum, would you make a motion to close the hearing? Thank you. Commissioner Jefferson, would you second that?
No second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, the hearing is closed. Commissioner Mahan, would you like to start this discussion?
I think, honestly, I think the proposal here is pretty straightforward and pretty modest, given the tremendous scale of the building. It is certainly a prominent building, a significant landmark in a prominent location. But I think the two entrances, certainly are deficient in their approach or ability to provide visibility, a kind of gracious and welcoming entrance, as well as, a sense of safety, given their heavy recess, and sharp contrast, particularly on a sunny day, to the exterior. And, the large scale columns, and their granite cladding and the recess is all being maintained. So I think that the configuration, the kind of procession of entrance is generally being maintained as well. And generally a narrow portion of the rear wall is being modified. The stainless steel drum revolving doors, can be quite charming in some mid-century buildings. I've seen them used, successfully in an otherwise sort of large, transparent wall. That's not the case here, and they frankly don't seem to be a kind of significant defining feature of the architecture of this entrance. So I'm okay with losing them and replacing them with something more contemporary and transparent. I think the lighting solution in the curved stainless steel ceiling is clever to reuse the same supplement in the reveals that you find already. I'm okay getting rid of the stainless steel downlights, at the edge of the brow. Again, in the mid-century work, sometimes a kind of grid of can lights can be a defining feature that doesn't appear to actually really be the case here. And again, they also function somewhat poorly given the adjacency to the granite piers. And the signage plan, I think, is an improvement over what's there today, and appropriate for a building of this scale. So I'm supportive with very few, if any, comments.
Thank you. Commissioner Chen?
Yeah, I was just passing by this building quite frequently, and it is dark, recessed, and is not welcoming. And I think this is a vast improvement, especially given the lobby. And I think Commissioner Mann touched on many of the good points and the thing. And I think that the lobby, getting rid of the drums and the revolving door in this case is appropriate. Getting more lights into the lobby, and then the ceiling hopefully will reflect more light. It was just while we're sitting here, there was the Daily News building just had an incident down the block. So I think, and I think that the control here really is make sure I think the proposed master plan for the signage is an improvement, but I think is obviously the devil's in the details, making sure the proportion, the font, the design is appropriate to this important thoroughfare. But overall, I can find that appropriate.
Thank you. Commissioner Goldblum?
Thank you. I agree 100% with Frank's comments, and I love this building. It's so exuberant, such a optimistic effervescent building, and it's so great that this is going to be converted to residential. It's such an interesting effort to make such a, I think this was going to be a residential building. No? Nope, sorry. Never mind, never mind. I thought that I read that somewhere, but never mind. Anyway, great building anyway. And the changes are definitely going to improve it. I think one of the most important things is the repair and refurbishment and elimination of the hi-hats under the arches. That was I think a move that everyone who passes by this building and sees it obliquely as it is seen will appreciate. I think these are all fine changes.
Thank you. Commissioner Jefferson?
What the architects have done is take that space, looked at the space as a whole and space in depth really well through light. And they did an incredible job just activating that space.
Thank you. Commissioner Kumbe?
Yes, overall, I enjoy the alterations that are being proposed, and also I think it makes a good transition just through the building from the street. So it's very nice.
Thank you. Commissioner Ginsburg?
I agree with my fellow commissioners. The eyebrows and columns are the strong elements that make this entrance, but the entrance could use some improvements, and this is what's being proposed along with the signage. I find this appropriate.
Yeah, I just also want to say that I agree with a lot of the comments and that it's just a wonderful modification. I think it really is going to enhance the user experience walking into the entrance of the building. And you did a really nice job. Commissioner Mahan, would you like to read the motion?
We're also entertained by the AI descriptions. I feel compelled to note that it's a large building with many windows. We're gonna have to figure that out one of these days. Okay. In the matter of LPC 26-09035-150 East 42nd Street, Saucony Mobile Building in individual landmark, an international modern style skyscraper designed by Harrison and Abramovitz and John B. Peterkin and built in 1954 to 56. Application is to modify entrances, remove and install light fixtures, and establish a master plan governing the future installation of signs and vitrines. I recommend approval, finding that the base of this modernist landmark features expressive architectural gestures with massive piers and swooping arches, signifying the location of the lobby entrances on Lexington Avenue and East 42nd Street, which dominate, pardon me, most views of the building and render the recessed entrance vestibules and door assemblies within them more secondary than is typical of many prominent historic office buildings. That the primary entrance on East 42nd Street is deeply recessed, therefore the replacement of select granite panels above the existing door assemblies at the rear of the entranceway with glass panels will increase natural light into the lobby without calling undue attention to this modification. That the proposed glass panels with narrow butt joints fronting structural mullions will recall the layout of the historic granite panel system and follow the historic curve of the entrance, and the height of the new door assembly will remain the same. That the introduction of new glazing above the recessed entrance will be in keeping with similar historic entrance treatments at this facade. That the design and materials of the replacement revolving doors and drums at the East 42nd Street entrance will recall the historic glass and metal revolving doors and drums that remain at the Lexington Avenue entrance, and the proposed glass and metal doors and sidelights adjacent to the revolving doors will match other historic infill found at this building. That the removal of downlights from the entrance arches will not eliminate a significant design feature, and the proposed strip light fixtures will be well integrated within the reveals of the existing corrugated metal panels at the vestibule ceiling. That the proposed pin-mounted letters and numbers on a stainless steel shelf at the entrances will be well scaled to the monumental entrances and set back from the street. That historically this building had signage plaques and pin-mounted address numbers at the piers and retail entrances, and that the proposed tenant signage mounted on the piers, comprised of pin-mounted letters with halo lighting, will recall the historic condition and relate well to the finishes at the building. That the tenant signage will be installed on a rail at plain granite paneled piers, thereby helping to minimize the amount of penetrations in the granite. That the establishment of a master plan for tenant signage will provide for a unified treatment of signage at this building over time, and that the cumulative effect of the proposed signage at the building will not overwhelm this large commercial building.
Thank you. Commissioner Chen, would you second that?
Second.
Thank you. And John, will you call the vote?
Vice Chair Master,
Aye.
Commissioner Chen,
Aye.
Commissioner Ginsburg,
Aye.
Commissioner Goldblum, Commissioner Quimby,
Aye.
Commissioner Jefferson,
Aye.
Commissioner Mahan.
Aye.
7 in favor, none opposed. The motion passes.
That's been approved. Let's move to the next item.
The next item is public hearing item number 5, LPC 25-09781. An application for a certificate of appropriateness in the Borough of Manhattan, Block 698, Lot 6, 549 West 26th Street in the West Chelsea Historic District. This is an American round arch style factory building designed by Charles H. Caldwell and built in 1900 and 1901. And the application is to legalize modifications to masonry openings in non-compliance with certificate of appropriateness 24-07092.
The cursor will move around. Will that show up?
Madam Chair, Commissioners, good afternoon. Rick Azar for 549 West 26th Street, Manhattan, a 6-story factory building constructed of red brick with limestone accents and completed in 1903. In January 2024, the Landmarks Preservation Commission approved at public hearing alterations to the first and second floors of 549 West 26th Street. In addition to providing new office and exhibition space for the Karma Gallery, the approved work included 3 identical 14-foot-high entrances, each comprised of a single operable door adjacent to a fixed storefront display window. Here we have 3 versions of the primary south elevation of 549 West 26th Street. To the left is a photo of the existing south facade as presented at public hearing in 2024. At center is a rendering of the LPC public hearing approved facade showing the 3 approved 14-foot-high entrances, and to the right, a photo of the current as-built condition. The plan approved at public hearing calling for the easternmost lintel to be raised from 12 feet to 14 feet. This would make the height of all 3 entrances uniform. However, during initial demolition at the easternmost opening, structural elements were discovered that prohibited raising the easternmost bay lintel. Okay. Here are partial building elevations. At top, the public hearing approved 14-foot-high entrance design, and below the as-built 12-foot-high condition. Without LPC approval, the center and westernmost lintels were lowered to 12 feet, and the easternmost lintel stayed at 12 feet. The installed doors and storefront display windows were resized to accommodate the lower height. The configuration, operation, materials, and finish of the public hearing approved entranceways were maintained. A privacy film was added to the glazing at the far eastern and western secondary entrances. Here are partial building elevations showing the as-built at top and proposed new entrance elevations below. We propose to maintain the as-built 12-foot-high condition with privacy film, and at the head of each entrance, proposed is a metal lintel panel, which has been added in consultation with LPC staff. At this point, I'd like to turn things over to Studio MDA Principal Architect Marcus Doshensi. Thank you.
Thank you, Rick. Yeah, unfortunately, I think we went a little too fast and did the change without getting or asking for approval during the process. We were very ambitious at the beginning, trying to have the opening at 14 feet, which is what a gallery would want is the maximum. And during the process found that that was not possible. And the contractor then reused the existing brick that was taken from a portion of the building that was a part of the entrances when it was widened, and filled that in on the top, adding a steel lintel to bring it down to 12, trying to match the same brick finishes that we had originally. Now that definitely should not have happened, and my apologies for pulling the trigger and the contract and us trying to finish the project as quick as we could for the gallery. But no original fabric was touched, so it was only added. And after conversation with the staff, we thought the idea of adding a metal panel that would make them all appear consistent at a 12-foot glazing and a 14-foot total opening seemed like a great idea, and we presented that to our client as well, who likes the idea very much. And with that, we hope to get approval for adding those 3 panels. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioners, do we have any questions? Okay. Noting that there's nobody in the room to speak on this item, let me turn it over to Stephen Thompson to see if we have any remote testimony.
Those joining via Zoom who wish to speak, please raise your hand. The first speaker will be Pamela Wolf. I'll be promoting you to a panelist, after which we ask you to unmute yourself, state your name for the record, and you'll have 3 minutes to speak.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. I am Pamela Wolf, a public member of Community Board 4's Chelsea Land Use Committee, reading from the board's advisory letter on this project. CB4 is concerned that work was undertaken without prior authorization. CB4, the integrity of the landmarks review process depends on applicants adhering to approved plans and returning to the commission when field conditions require modification. Accordingly, the board voted to recommend denial of this application unless one of the following conditions is met: restoration of ground floor openings to the 14-foot height previously approved by the commission, or, in lieu of this, removal of paint from the upper facade and restoration of the historic brickwork across the upper stories, subject to LPC staff review and approval, thereby improving the building's overall historic appearance. CB4 believes that the proposed corrective measures are appropriate, given that the completed work materially deviated from the approved work. This recommendation reflects the board's interest in upholding the integrity of the landmarks process while achieving a net preservation benefit for this contributing structure. I am also president of the community advocacy group Save Chelsea, which agrees with CB4's recommendation, and I thank you.
Thank you. Would anyone else joining via Zoom wish to offer testimony? Please raise your hand. All right, seeing none, that is all the testimony we received.
Thank you. Did you want to respond to the comments?
Yeah, sure, why not? We in fact, in the first round, asked the landlord to clean the entire building, which we were, that would be in our preference and the preference of the gallery as well. But unfortunately, that's not something we can force on the landlord.
Thank you. Commissioners, do we have any final questions? Commissioner Goldblum?
A question to Corey or staff recommendation about removing the eastern.
I think if we can go to a photo, Abby, that shows maybe the 3 bays altogether. I think there was some concern that while the metal cladding where those 2 middle bays are recessed might fit in neatly, that it may not look as neat on that bay to the east where the brickwork is actually flush and not recessed. It's kind of a installation detail more than a conceptual issue with it.
Thanks.
Commissioners, any other questions? Okay, if not, let's go ahead and close the hearing. Commissioner Chen, would you make a motion to close the hearing?
So move.
Thank you. Commissioner Mahan, would you second that?
Second.
All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay, the hearings are closed. Commissioner Ginsburg, would you like to start this discussion?
Yes. So first, I have to say it's unfortunate that you moved ahead with these changes without talking to the staff, which could have happened pretty quickly. I know you were trying to move quickly, and I appreciate that. I noticed looking at the photos that the western and middle bay, you can really tell the new brick from the existing, which it's really hard. Even if you get a perfect match, brick that's weathered for 100 years is going to look different than the new brick. So I think the proposal of the metal cladding at the center and western bay that will hide that and give a more of a feeling of the existing opening makes sense. However, at the eastern bay, partially because it isn't recessed, but also because that is the original opening, I think I would recommend, see how my fellow commissioners feel, that that not be clad in the metal. It'll make it less symmetrical, but more like it was originally. So with that change, I can find it appropriate and recommend that you work with staff to do that.
Thank you. Commissioner Mahan?
I concur.
Commissioner Chen?
Same here.
Commissioner Goldblum? Commissioner Jefferson?
Same.
Commissioner Kumbay?
Agreed.
I also agree with your suggestion, Commissioner Ginsburg. Would you like to read the motion?
With regards to LPC 25-09781, 549 West 26th Street, West Chelsea Historic District, American round arch style factory building designed by Charles H. Caldwell and built in 1900-1901. Application is to legalize modifications to masonry openings in non-compliance with Certificate of Appropriateness 24-07092. I note that the building style, scale, material, and details are among the features that contribute to the special architectural and historic character of the West Chelsea Historic District. I recommend approval with modifications, finding that the site conditions discovered during construction precluded raising the lintel at the easternmost bay without significant structural intervention, that the height and width of the ground floor loading bays had been altered over time, and the installation of brick infill above the center and westernmost garage bays is in keeping with the history of change and allowed for the installation of consistent storefront infill at the base of the building. That the installation of black finished metal cladding over the new brick infill at the center and westernmost bays will match the storefront infill in terms of material and finish and will recall the historic size of these openings. And that the installation of grayscale translucent film at storefront glazing is easily reversible, is limited to the 2 garage bays, thereby retaining transparency in the storefront at the center bay. However, I found that the installation of the metal cladding above the easternmost bay will not relate to the historic size of the opening, which had been widened and the masonry above the opening had been brought forward flush with the surrounding masonry. Therefore, I recommend that the metal cladding above the easternmost bay be eliminated.
Thank you. And Commissioner Mahan, would you second that?
Second.
Thank you. And John, will you call the vote?
Vice Chair Master,
Aye.
Commissioner Chen,
Aye.
Commissioner Ginsburg,
Aye.
Commissioner Goldblum, Commissioner Quimby,
Aye.
Commissioner Jefferson,
Aye.
Commissioner Mahan.
Aye.
7 in favor, none opposed. The motion passes.
That's been approved. Please continue to work with staff on the modifications. Thank you. Let's move to the next item.
All right, we'll move to the next and last item of the day. It's public hearing item number 6, LPC 26-04287, an application for a certificate of appropriateness in the Borough of Manhattan, Block 1129, Lot 29, 170 Central Park West, the New York Historical Society, individual landmark, also in the Upper West Side Central Park West Historic District. This is a Roman eclectic style museum and library building designed by York and Sawyer and built in 1903 to 1908, with wings added in 1937 to 38 by Walker and Gillette. And the application is to install banners and signage.
Good afternoon. Can you all hear me? Great. My name is Ken Wine. I'm the Chief Content Officer at the New York Historical. It is a pleasure to be here, and we thank you for your consideration of our application. I'm just going to give a brief introduction, then hand over to Bridget Cook, who's our fantastic architect lead on this project. As you may know, the New York Historical, formerly known as the New York Historical Society, and I'm not here to talk about the hyphen that used to be in the name. The New York Historical is the city's oldest, that's not me, is it? No? Okay. It's the city's first and oldest museum. And there you go. Now it's my turn. Look at that. It's okay. And we're here to talk about a banner and light system for the facade. As you know, all museums, most museums across the city have banners. I've spent my career in many institutions, the New York Public Library and the Met Museum and the Historical, all of which have had banner systems. Ours, they had one years ago, it was outdated. We've brought one in on a temporary basis recently. We use it to communicate locally and with the tourists that are up and down Central Park West through Central Park and our next door neighbor, the American Museum of Natural History. We usually use it to communicate our brand, the name the New York Historical, and to communicate specific exhibitions. This very year, where we're celebrating 250 years of our nation's birth and our democracy, we have 7 exhibitions about the 250th. And so right now we have the left banner that says Democracy Lives Here, and the right banner is promoting the kind of exhibition du jour. So we think we have a really good system here, and we look forward to your hearing it. And I'll hand over to Bridget. Thank you so much.
Okay, good afternoon. My name is Bridget Cook. I'm at PBDW Architects. I'm an associate partner there. And I'm here with Ken from New York Historical to present a master plan for signage and the related lighting system. So the proposal builds on existing signage and attachment systems and limits new interventions and organizes the exterior signage into a more coherent master plan. The proposal is intended to support the institution's public presence and exhibition programming while respecting the building's historic character. The building is located along Central Park West between 76th and 77th Streets. It is an individual landmark, and it is within the Central Park West and Upper West Side historic districts. As Ken pointed out, the building has a very prominent visibility. And because of that, we developed a signage strategy that works in harmony with the building's architectural order and created a cohesive framework to honor the building as New York's first museum while clarifying its civic identity. So it was once a private institution and it has now evolved into an inclusive, public-facing museum. Our proposal helps express that shift through a clearer, more welcoming presence. The building was built in 1908, designed by York and Sawyer. The north and south wings were added in 1937 by the firm Walker and Gillette, following along with the original design set forth by York and Sawyer with the Roman eclectic language. It remains largely intact today. Features, the grand colonnade, the symmetrical rhythm, and classical details reflect its cultural and civic importance. When we surveyed the existing signage on the building, we found layering over time that had accumulated. We have a collection of kiosks on the sidewalk, banners, former attachments to previous signage, flagpoles, and also some vinyl decals. So this is the Central Park West facade as it is today. So we've worked with New York Historical to achieve temporary permits for signage over time. And there have been many iterations of different types, but this is how it is currently. The north facade is limited to these vinyl decals on the ramp and windows. This is a close-up of the ramp. And this is the south facade that currently has no signage at all. So over time, the New York Historical has employed many different types of signage, and some very large and bold. We looked at comparable public institutions in New York City, landmarks, and looked at how other museums and public buildings display large-scale banners to mark exhibitions and create an inviting atmosphere. So this is a diagram showing the existing condition. We have existing attachment systems noted in this blue, and red are attachments that will be going away because they're no longer used. They're just the attachment poles that are still connected from previous signs. And the shade indicates the area of the existing sign. And then this is the proposed. So we'd be pulling back on the extent of the existing so that we can expose those columns on either side, on either end, but keep the existing attachments as they are, which are all inserted into mortar joints with brackets and turnbuckles and this cable system that was installed in 2010. This is the north facade, and the proposal is to include the option for one additional sign to match the height of the signs on Central Park West. This is the south facade, and again, that prominent corner would have one sign on that one corner there to match the same exact side for the balance of the other sign on the north. Here's a rendering showing from the corner looking towards the north from Central Park West, showing the pulled back sign on Central Park West bays, and then the sign on the south. And then from the opposite corner looking south from the north end. And here is a proposal to create a more cohesive sign decal system so that it blends in more with the building and matches their new signage campaign, but also making sure to make it clear for people who need an accessible entry where that entry is. Here is a set of details showing the existing to remain connections that were installed by Manhattan Signs that we're still working with, showing their system of these brackets and the turnbuckles and cables that are installed in existing joints. These are the attachments. And then this would be the new proposed attachment system for the north and similar south facade corners to match the same system. Okay, the proposal also includes the related lighting for the signage. The previous design for our project in 2010, when we did our renovation project, included these feature illuminated graphics behind the monumental windows. That system is no longer functioning, and it has been cumbersome to maintain with new technology that is no longer works. So New York Historical is looking for something simpler and a more focused approach. So the proposal, by shifting to signage system, the museum is looking to communicate its exhibits more clearly and create a welcoming presence with lighting as well. This is what the building looks like at night right now with the without the illuminated panels, and why we're looking at inserting that lighting back to the facade. So we looked at other institutions, landmarks, and how they create a welcoming effect at night, but also featuring architecture with the lighting. And we found many cases of landmarks that have light fixtures with a slight extension of an arm in order to project more light up to architectural features when elements are projecting out. So that is a drawing here of our proposed lighting system. So the proposal takes all the existing light fixture locations, so the junction box and their attachments would all remain. So that's what these little red circles are pointing out. That's where existing lights are. But they don't illuminate up anymore because they need to stick out more in order to get beyond the sign. And also, it didn't go all the way up to the top. So we've been working with Renfro lighting designers to come up with a system that would feature the architecture and also provide a wash on and make the sign visible. So these are the dimensions of the adjusted arm and the shields that are on the light fixture to eliminate glare. And then a little 3D model on the left here, you can see the size of them, and it's so small, it's barely blends in. And then we had our lighting designers, they ordered a sample of the light that we're proposing, and then we covered it in white paper because we intend to have it match the color of the building like the previous lights did. So this is one of our New York Historical staff is holding up the light fixture to the location at the right distance so that we could test the visibility. This is a close-up on the left here. You can see that. But when you are standing at my height and looking up, it's very hard to see. Okay, and then here is a rendering showing the nighttime effect we were trying to achieve with a slight glow. Nothing is being changed at the lower level. That's existing to remain. In conclusion, the signage master plan and lighting proposal ensure that the New York Historical remains accessible, clear, and respectful of its historic character, and the balance of the institution's exhibition needs with the integrity of our architecture, using existing conditions where possible and limiting unnecessary interventions. We believe this proposal strengthens the building's civic presence while ensuring that it remains a dignified landmark. Thank you.
Thank you. Corey, did you want to say something?
Yeah, I just wanted to clarify a little bit about the permit history here. My understanding that the commission itself has only ever approved 3 sort of perpendicularly oriented banners, stretch banners from the 3 center bays along Central Park West. And what you're seeing here in these other examples were done solely through temporary permits. When that happens, the staff is not judging them pursuant to the rules. The commission has never judged them for appropriateness. It's just it's going up for a period of time and then it's expected to be removed. So in that case, the armatures may still be there, sort of past their due date, and the applicant seeks to more or less make those a permanent thing, even if they're choosing to show a different sort of configuration of banners and widths. So I just wanted to be clear that nothing about that is sort of pursuant to staff rules or previously reviewed by the commission, so you don't have to kind of think of it as an existing condition in the way we normally would. And then the second thing is the applicants are calling this a master plan, and rightfully so. I know we bring different things called master plans from time to time here, whether it's for windows or storefronts or signage. This is a little different just from a regulatory perspective. If you're to approve banners here, which most of these are, the staff would not look at them every time the applicant seeks to swap them out. They would just be sort of, something that the applicant does when they want to, unlike other things where the tenant may change and have a different look to them.
Thank you. Commissioners, do you have questions? Commissioner Jefferson?
On this particular building, the columns on the second floor are really beautiful. There's a row of them. Do you have to cover them with signs, or could you live with the sign in between the columns?
We certainly looked at that, and that's where we started, but we found that it was really hard to, with the amount of space provided, portray the information that the historical was looking for. So it's something that we've looked at with different graphics and tested, and it's very limiting. So that we thought that this one sacrifice of the interior one where you still see the top, you read the bottom, and it's matching the others was the best compromise in order to be able to make it clear that this is a museum, this is a public building, and that people should look up, take notice, and see what's happening.
So the corners, the corner windows, what about those? Would you cover those up?
We're not covering the corner windows. I can go back to an elevation. It's on an area that doesn't have window. There. So there's no window in this. It's the same on, okay, sorry.
I'm talking about
A different area.
front facade, right?
Front facade.
You have corner windows. You have 2 corner windows.
Oh, these are the existing grills.
You don't want to cover those.
No. It's an original bronze grill pattern that we just restored.
Thank you. Commissioner Mann, did you?
Can you clarify the history of the lighting? As I understood it, lighting was approved, and was it installed? Is this a photo or a rendering?
This is a photo.
Okay,
that
so
we-
there's
yeah.
lighting at the columns and
Yeah.
lighting at the base. The next slide says this is the condition today. What happened to all the lights?
So there was a problem at the sidewalk here with, a water issue, and that's being fixed. So they're fixing that as part of maintenance. It's not part of the proposal because that's just going to be adjusted and fixed. There was lighting in the kiosks, but that's since been covered over. because they prefer, these were blades that turned, and it also became too complicated over time to continually change out this sign. It was a very complicated procedure, and they weren't able to alter the lights, or excuse me, the sign over time. So they've just covered it with a flat sign, and it's static now. So there are no lights anymore at the kiosk. The lights on the sidewalk will be replaced. They're in process. The handrail lights are all, installed, working. The two side pavilion ends, they do still have their light on the corners.
What about the columns?
The column lights do exist, but they don't, if there's a sign, then it gets in the way. And so it no longer works.
You have to turn them off because
Yeah.
you put a sign in front of them. Okay.
And there was a lot of light being emitted by these large LED screens too that created a glow, and now those are not on.
Commissioner Goldblum, did you have a question?
No, as to.
Okay, I do have a question. Side signs.
These?
That's fine.
Okay.
Your rendering makes the sign seem like it's centered, but the drawing shows that it's not centered.
It's the drawing, and if it's not, it's,
It's definitely
Yeah.
not centered. Is that your idea? Is that your
yes,
intention?
that was the idea. There was a dimension that we were holding and copying, but I think we can. There was some dimension that we were pulling back from, but I think that we could,
There's no
adjust
lighting
that.
associated with these.
no lighting on north and south, and it would remain that way.
So are you saying that you?
I think, you mean
Left to
horizontal?
right.
Yeah,
Relative to the panel on which they.
yeah, the rendering is, yes, please look at the rendering.
Got it. Thank you.
Sure.
Commissioner Mahan?
Apologies, I forgot a question earlier. On the ramp, maybe this is a question for staff. Are the signs that are there, are they like a temporary approval or?
I don't think staff has awareness of those. I think they were just
They're just
installed there
there.
without us knowing.
So you noted, you showed a before and after and noted that you were clarifying or simplifying, something to that regard. What did you do? What exactly is the proposal as to how you've accomplished that?
So there were a lot more color variations, and the graphics felt as though they were larger and smaller than one another because of the coloring of them. So we've regularized it, so they're all the same size, and they have this, blank background that matches the color of the building behind. So it blends in more. Yep.
Any other questions? Commissioner Jefferson?
Question, why do the signs have to be on the building? Why couldn't they be on the sidewalk? As pedestrians walk by, and you see them at Lincoln Center, you see them.
The signs are there to bring visitors in and welcome the public. Our friends at American Museum of Natural History next door, the Met Museum, they all have very large, prominent banner systems. Particularly when you walk up and down Central Park West. This one is very important to us because our friends at AMNH have about 20,000 visitors a day. We would like to get a small group of them to visit the historical every day. So it's a little less visible when there's foliage there, but it would be a vast improvement, and it did exist previously.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay. Noting that there's nobody in the room to speak on this item, let me turn it over to Stephen Thompson for remote testimony.
Zoom participants wishing to speak, please raise your hand. The first speaker will be Megan Fitzpatrick.
Hello, Commissioners. Megan Fitzpatrick speaking on behalf of Landmark West. Our Certificate of Appropriateness Committee believes the proposed lighting and signage plan is generally appropriate. However, the current scheme suggests a lack of careful integration between signage and the architectural features of the facade, resulting in the obstruction of one of the city's most significant views. On the Central Park West facade, the current banner placement only partially responds to the structure's design. While the adjustment to reveal the outer column is an improvement, the continued coverage of the central columns undermines the original composition. A more cohesive solution would keep all banners within the boundaries of the columns, allowing these defining vertical elements to remain fully visible and preserving the intended rhythm of the facade. This approach would also allow mounting hardware such as turnbuckle brackets to be set back more discreetly rather than placed prominently on concerns regarding the relationship between signage and lighting. As designed, the projecting light fixtures extend significantly beyond the plane of the columns, creating unnecessary visual intrusion. If the signage were set further back toward the fenestration, the lighting elements could likewise be reduced, resulting in a more integrated and less prominent installation. Additionally, the design would benefit from a stronger emphasis on down lighting, which is both feasible with setback fixtures and more appropriate to the building's character. Thank you.
The next speaker will be Historic Districts Council.
Hello, this is Emma Bartley speaking on behalf of the Historic Districts Council. HDC is concerned that the proposed banners overwhelm the building's facade. Our review committee recommends confining banners within individual bays to keep all columns unobstructed and exploring more transparent materials to reduce their cumulative visual impact. HDC also recommends that installation, if not already, be limited in duration, with banners used only for specific exhibitions and removed after a defined period, allowing the public to periodically experience the landmark's facade unobstructed. Thank you.
The next speaker is John Graham.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. John Graham for the Victorian Society in New York. We object to the size and location of the banners that the New York Historicals proposes. If these banners are allowed, then the facade's major feature, its colonnade and the architectural rhythm it generates, will be obscured. Instead, we suggest a symmetrical array of 1, 2, or 3 vertical banners within the bays of columns. This way, only the windows, rather than the columns, would be obscured. In addition, we agree with HDC's excellent suggestion. This would set time limits on how long banners can be up on this and other major designated civic buildings. During a significant portion of each calendar year, the buildings should be seen as they were designed, free from the huge banners that have become so ubiquitous. The public has a right to see these designated buildings in the fullness of their design, which is what makes them worthy of designation in the first place. Covering large portions of their architectural features and doing so continuously, year in and year out, does a disservice to the buildings, turning them from great works of architecture into billboards. Thank you, Commissioners.
Anyone else joining via Zoom who wishes to speak, please raise your hand. Seeing none, I'll note for the record that Manhattan Community Board 7 recommends approval.
Thank you. Would the applicant like to respond to any of the comments?
Thank you, and thank you for this level of engagement. We considered many options for this. I think this is the most reasonable one. Yes, of course, one could do 5 individual banners, but it would be communicating a lot less strongly. I would impress upon the commission that we are a mission-driven organization that is trying to bring history to our community. And our ability to do that through banners that I would suggest are smaller than our field of competitors, friendly competitors across the museum seems exceptionally reasonable. These have been up on a temporary basis for, I think, over a year. They've been very successful, and we appreciate your consideration. Do you have anything else to add, Bridget?
Another item that someone, I just heard in a comment, was considering to change the plane of the banners. That is something that we looked at very early on and worked with Manhattan Sign about. But it would have meant making new attachments, and these attachments are existing. So, we don't want to create more holes and more patches. And that was one of the guiding, aspects of this design, was to work with what's there and to cause less damage. And it's already an attachment that exists, and it's stable, and it's been tested, and Manhattan Sign was, confident that that was going to work with the new design. And also, the blades that we had previously were very hard to read. So that was something that's, both on the kiosk and on the banners on the sign. So, it was really meant, it seemed that you see it more if you're in a car, but not so much, looking across the street and getting more attention. So that was another thing that we've been thinking about. I think that's it. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Commissioners, do we have any final questions? If not, let's go ahead and close the hearing. Commissioner Jefferson, would you make a motion to close the hearing?
So moved.
Thank you. Commissioner Kumbe, would you second that?
Second.
All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay, the hearing is closed. Commissioner Goldblum, would you like to start this one?
Betcha. So here we have an ironic setup. We have a building that's striving to teach history, close the historical artifact in which they are housed. It may very well be that the square footage of signage proposed here is smaller than that which covers the American Museum of Natural History. I don't know. But I think that you have to look at this relative to the building in question, not necessarily as a square footage takeoff. And the examples that were shown by the applicant on their page 14 are, with one exception, incredibly consistent. They all show banners recessed behind the plane of the architectural elements that frame them. They never cross over those elements. They are enclosed by the significant elements that are the features that create the facade. So I think that the applicants should follow the example of the precedents that they cited and propose banners that are not. I think I'd be okay with the staff supervising the anchoring of new anchors in the joints, as the applicant is requesting for the sidewalls. I think that the banners should not cover the columns, that's for sure. They should be recessed to be maybe centered on the columns, or maybe at the facade level, behind the columns, the window level. And I really don't think they should go below the windowsill. I think you have a very attractive decorative frieze that runs below the windows. That's, I think, a significant architectural element that should be visible. I think that the lighting being projected out is only being projected out, as Frank noted, because of the position of the signage being proud of the columns. If you allow the signs to be recessed like the other examples, then the lighting that's there now will serve those signs as it serves the columns. And you won't have to have projected lights. I thought that the installation at the Morgan, which has those projected lights, was unfortunate. I think it was not an installation I was particularly proud of. I think that the side signs that are on the solid portions can be acceptable. They should be centered, and I think they too should align with the windows and not be quite as long as they are. I think the width is okay. I think that the ramp, what we have in the case of the ramp is a sign that the staff has no knowledge of, that the applicant suggests ameliorating to a very modest degree. I think I ask myself, would we have approved those? And I think that they're a bit much. I think that they're rather insistent, and they take what was approved as a transparent railing and make it 100% opaque. And not just opaque, but very loud and aggressive. I don't think it was the intention. So I am not in favor of those signs. I think that if the applicant wanted to come back with something that restored the degree of transparency that was approved, but integrated some reduced quantity of signage there or messaging, I think it might be acceptable, but it's too much. I really think it's too much.
Thank you. Commissioner Chen?
I feel less strongly than Michael does in this case. I think that, in the context of, because in the context of the location and the nature of this, if we were to fragment the sign, actually we're making more sign. Let's say to the two large panels on the either side. By having it split into 5 signs versus the 3 that's currently proposed, I just feel that it would have been a simpler, more simple, more readable solution rather than having the message. Let's say, let's think about democracy, and you have to make in essence, let's say take the case in this instance of democracy, you would then end up with 5 signs that are narrow, smaller, and less visible than a simpler, cleaner image, at least in this instance. And so in that regard, I feel this is appropriate because the alternative is actually more clutter and more fragmented. And so given the nature of the 2 signs on the corner, I also feel that is a blank space, and that in the context of the necessity on the corner, I also feel those are appropriate. I won't comment on the ramp because those are not what we approved. But I'd like to hear the rest of the commission feel about the lighting. I'm not a lighting expert, even though I'm very interested in night lighting in terms of safety and visibility. So I'll leave it at that.
Thank you. Commissioner Mahan?
I agree with everything that Commissioner Goldblum said. I think, the context is, of course, important. This is a mission-driven institution. It's a public building. They seek to, engage with the public, as much as possible, and to gain as much, throughput and membership and so forth. And that's why we're having the conversation about having banners and how to go about doing so at all. Not, that does not lead one to a particular conclusion, in my opinion, about, the scale or amount, of building that they may or may not obscure. I think that, the precedents, I think, demonstrate a clear logic that applies certainly to this building, if not more so, if you look at the historic condition and the architectural characteristics of this building. It is an incredibly simple building. The photos and the art and the appendix demonstrate this to be the case. You know, essentially two parts, a top and a bottom. You know, the top being sort of the crowning element. This, you know, very clear sort of rhythm. So I think, in my mind, it couldn't be any clearer that we cannot obscure any of the columns. I think the signs must be recessed relative to the outer face of the columns. I'd be okay with any number of infill banners. I think it's a good idea that they would align with the windows within those arcades. I think the lighting, you know, should be rethought. Maybe what's there works, maybe what's there doesn't work and needs to be adjusted, but you know, whatever that adjustment may or may not be would certainly be ameliorated by moving the plan of the banners. It was noted that the fixtures would be white. That may need to be reconsidered if they're to be so visible. That perhaps may draw undue attention to them. I'm okay with the signage on the north and the south. I think that it should align with the windows in elevation and be centered on that panel. And I think that the signage on the glass guardrail should be removed. It is busy. I think it's honestly like unbefitting of a sort of dignified institution like this, and also ungracious towards the purpose of the ramp in and of itself.
Thank you. Commissioner Ginsburg?
So my comments are going to be somewhat in between and give you clear direction totally. So I think the columns need to be exposed. So I think the sign that goes over the columns should be two signs. I'm less concerned about the plane, and I appreciate keeping the existing attachments instead of putting new. The other issue related to that is the lighting. And to properly light this, you do need an angle where you can't, if you're too close to it, you're going to show every wrinkle in the sign and it's just not going to work. If you push it back a bit, you may be able to reduce the length of those arms a bit, which would be a good thing. If you kept it forward, you might be able to try and do some sort of backlighting of the sign. I think that needs to be worked out, but I think there's a real problem. You need some distance so the angle isn't straight up or straight down. And so the arms may be the only way to do this. I think the north and south signs, as you flagged, are probably more important than the signs between the columns in many ways, because particularly the north side sign is seen from all the people who are going to your northern neighbor and saying, oh, there's another museum there. And I can live with the size you have now. Maybe we'd reduce it a bit, and I agree they should be centered on the wall. But those are fairly blank. Those are blank walls except for the stone, and I think that is the most important signage. As to the ramp, I think you could have some signs on it, but I'd like to see it broken up so some of that ramp was transparent. Like every other bay or at the landings and at the first 5 feet going up or something like that. So I think you're close to be there. I also think you've done a lot of thought on this. But to me, the really important thing is you see all the columns.
I'm going to jump in as well. So I'm more of the mind of Commissioner Ginsburg. I think that the columns should be exposed, but I'm fine with the banner going across behind the column, if that makes sense. I think you had that in some of your examples. And I'm actually okay with the length being what you've presented. So but I think the columns really do have to be exposed. I'm fine with the signs as proposed on the walls, I guess the north-south walls, and the size I think is appropriate. And in terms of the lighting, I just think perhaps it has to be rethought. I don't think it's going to be good to be too prominent, and I'm a little concerned with what was proposed. And in terms of the ramp, the railing, it does look, as Commissioner Mahan said, it doesn't look worthy of this institution. So I'm not sure if the solution is to eliminate it completely, or if you come up with something that's more fitting. I would leave that up to you. Commissioner Ikumbe?
Yes, I'm in agreement with a lot of the comments that have already been said. Just column should be exposed. Any signage on the north and south walls should be properly positioned on the wall and scaled. And I would relook at the signage on the ramp. Actually reduce it. It's quite busy and overpowering. So I believe there's some tricks that can probably be utilized to make it more effective. And just as it comes to the lighting, it really depends on where the signs are placed. So the two in combination should be.
Thank you. Commissioner Jefferson?
This is a very difficult one for me because typically if you go to the facade, could you show the image of the facade? Okay, this one. We typically look at buildings like this, but when we are walking down the street, we're walking either across the street or we're walking on the side of the building. If you're walking on the side of the building, on that side, and you put the sign behind the columns, you won't see much. You just see edges of the sign, just perception. When you're across the street is when you see this vision of this, typically. So the question is, pushing it back, be viewed from across the street, perhaps. Viewed on the same side, not going to happen. If you decide to look at it purely from across the street, then the two big covering up the columns makes sense, right? Because they need to have more space. And the question there is, do we give them a time duration, 2 months, 3 months, then they have to take it off or restore the column, some amount of time, because just people walking across the street, that view is open to say 50% of the people walking up that Central Park West. And I can accept that for a period of time. The lighting, a difficult one. They have to work it out. It's just having it stick out doesn't work very well. The ramp doesn't work because the graphic is continuous. It's a line of graphics and it's all different colors. If they broke it up into pieces, one sign 5 feet, another sign, it would be less continuous. I would prefer not to have any graphics in the ramp. It's beautiful without it. This building doesn't need that. But if they want to have it, then they have to figure out another way.
Thank you. So I think what we're going to do is take no action on this item. And I think you've heard a lot of the comments from the commissioners, and perhaps we'll bring you back in the near future. You can work with staff on a presentation that incorporates some of the comments. Thank you. Yeah. Okay. So this concludes our public hearing and public meeting for April 14th, or is that today? Today's this, what day is it? Oh, today's the 21st, 2026. Thank you all for your participation, and we will see everybody on May 5th, 2026